Welcome back, everyone. Here we are at the Count of Monte Cristo, chapter 62, The Apparition Again. Okay, that flyway is going to bother me. There we go. Valentine was alone. Except for the rumbling of distant carriages, all was still. Valentine's attention was concentrated on the clock in the room, which marked the seconds, and noticed that they were twice as slow as the beating of her heart. Yet she was in a maze of doubt. She, who never did harm to anyone, could not imagine that anyone should desire her death. Why? To what purpose? What harm had she done that she should have an enemy? There was no fear of her falling asleep. A terrible thought kept her mind alert. There existed a person in the world who had attempted to murder her and was going to make another attempt. What if the Count had not the time to run to her help? What if her last moment were approaching and she would see Morel no more? This train of thought nearly compelled her to ring the bell for help, but she fancied she saw the Count's eye peering through the door, and at the thought of it her mind was overwhelmed with such shame that she did not know whether her feeling of gratitude toward him could be large enough to efface the painful effect of his indiscreet attention. 30 minutes, which seems like an eternity, passed thus, and at length the clock struck at the half hour. At the same moment, a slight scratching of fingernails on the door of the library apprised Valentine that the Count was still watching. Then, Valentine seemed to hear the floor creaking on the opposite side, that is to say, in Edward's room. She listened with bated breath. The latch grated, and the door swung on its hinges. Valentine had raised herself up on her elbow, and she only just had time to lay herself down again and cover her eyes with her arms. Then, trembling, agitated, and her heart heavy with indescribable terror, she waited. Someone approached her bed and touched the curtains. Valentine summoned all her strength and breathed with the regular respiration which proclaims tranquil sleep. "Valentine," said a low voice. A shudder went through the girl's whole frame, but she made no reply. "Valentine," the same voice repeated. The same silence. Valentine had promised not to awaken. Then all was still except for the almost noiseless sound of liquid being poured into the tumbler she had just emptied. Then, from the vantage ground of her arm, she risked opening her eyes a little and saw a woman in a white dressing gown emptying some liquid from a phial into her tumbler. Perhaps Valentine held her breath for an instant, or made a slight movement, for the woman became uneasy, paused in her devilish work, and leaned over the bed to see if Valentine was really asleep. It was Madame de Villefort. When Valentine recognized her stepmother, she trembled so violently that the whole bed shook. Madame de Villefort instantly stepped back close to the wall, and from there, herself hidden behind the bed hangings, watched attentively and silently for the slightest movement on Valentine's part. Summoning all her willpower to her assistance, the sick girl forced herself to close her eyes. But so strong was the feeling of curiosity which prompted her to keep her eyes open and learn the truth that this function of the most delicate of our organs, which is generally such a simple action, became almost impossible of achievement at that moment. However, hearing Valentine's even breathing once more, and reassured thereby that she was asleep, Madame de Villefort stretched out her arm once more, and, hidden as she was behind the curtains at the head of the bed, emptied the contents of the phial into Valentine's tumbler. Then she withdrew, but so quietly that not the least sound told Valentine that she was gone. It is impossible to describe what Valentine went through during the minute and a half that Madame de Villefort was in the room. The scratching of the fingernails on the library door roused the poor girl from the stupor into which she had fallen, and she raised her head with an effort. The door noiselessly turned on its hinges, and the Count of Monte Cristo appeared again. "Well," he asked, "do you still doubt?" "Alas!" "Did you recognize her?" Valentine groaned as she answered, "I did, but I still cannot believe it. What can I do? Can I not leave the house? Can I not escape?" "Valentine, the hand that pursues you now will follow you everywhere. Your servants will be seduced with gold, and death will face you disguised in every shape and form, in the water you drink from the well, and the fruit you pluck from the tree." "But did you not say my grandfather's precautions had made me immune from poisoning?" "From one kind of poisoning, but even then not large doses. The poison will be changed or the dose increased." He took the tumbler and put his lips to it. "You see, it has already been done. She is no longer trying to poison you with bruchine, but with a simple narcotic. I can recognize the taste of the alcohol in which it has been dissolved. If you had drunk what Madame de Villefort had just poured into this tumbler, you would have been lost." Oh dear, cried the young girl. Why does she pursue me thus? I cannot understand. I have never done her any harm. But you are rich, Valentine. You have an income of 200,000 francs. What is more, you are keeping her son from getting this money. Edward! Poor child, it is for his sake that all these crimes are committed? Ah, you understand at last. Heaven grant that he may not suffer for this. You are an angel, Valentine. But why is my grandfather allowed to live? Because she thought that once you were dead, the money would naturally revert to your brother, unless, of course, he were disinherited, and that after all it would be running a useless risk to commit this crime. Has such a plan really been conceived in the mind of a woman? 'Tis too terrible. Do you remember the vine arbor of the Hotel de la Posta at Perugia, and the man in the brown mantle whom your mother questioned about Aqua Tofana? Well, this infernal plan has been maturing in her brain ever since that period. Then if it is so, I see that I am doomed to die, cried the girl, bursting into tears. No, Valentine, for I have foreseen all her plots, and so your enemy is beaten. You will live, Valentine. You will live to love and be loved. You will live to be happy and make a noble heart happy, but to attain this, you must have confidence in me. You must take blindly what I give you. You must trust no one, not even your father. My father is not a party to this frightful plot, is he? Cried Valentine, wringing her hands. No, and yet your father, who is accustomed to juridical accusations, must know that all these people who have died in your house have not died natural deaths. Your father should have watched over you. He should be where I am now. He should have emptied this tumbler, and he should have risen up against this murderer. I shall do all I can to live, for there are two persons in the world who love me so much that my death would mean their death, my grandfather and Maximilian. I shall watch over them as I have watched over you, said Monte Cristo. Then he went on, Whatever happens to you, Valentine, do not be alarmed. Though you suffer and lose your sight and hearing, do not be afraid. Though you awaken and know not where you are, fear not. Even though on awaking you find yourself in some sepulchral vault or coffin, collect your thoughts quickly and say to yourself, At this moment a friend is watching over me, a father, a man who desires our happiness, mine and Maximilian's. Alas, alas, to think I have to go through all that. Valentine, would you prefer to denounce your stepmother? I would sooner die 100 times. No, you shall not die, but promise me that whatever happens, you will not complain or lose hope. I shall think of Maximilian. You are my darling child, Valentine. I alone can save you, and save you I will. My daughter, believe in my devotion to you as you believe in the goodness of God and in Maximilian's love for you, said the Count with an affectionate smile. Valentine gave him a grateful look and became submissive as a little child. Then the Count took from his waistcoat pocket the little emerald box and, taking off the lid, put into Valentine's right hand a pill about the size of a pea. Valentine took it to her other hand and looked earnestly at the Count. There was a look of grandeur almost divine in the features of her sure protector. He answered her mute inquiry with a nod of dissent. She placed the pill in her mouth and swallowed it. Now goodbye, my child, said he. I shall try to gain a little sleep, for you are saved. Monte Cristo looked long at the dear child as she gradually dropped off to sleep, overcome by the powerful narcotic he had given her. Taking the tumbler, he emptied 3/4 of its contents into the fireplace, so that it might be believed Valentine had drunk it, and replaced it on the table. Then, regaining the door of his retreat, he disappeared after casting one more look on Valentine, who was sleeping with the confidence and innocence of an angel at the feet of the Lord. So, Valentine's poisoner is revealed, and Monte Cristo's plot to save her might have a little Romeo and Juliet twist to it. We'll see you next time.